far as I'm concerned, gamers have never had it better. Games look better, they sound better, they play smoother, the audience is older, which means that video games have this potential to explore deeper narratives and have more mature themes to them. I just think video games are really at the pinnacle of what they're doing with cutting-edge technology and a more intelligent audience base. So I find it kind of dismaying, in a way, when I see retro gamers, as they often like to call themselves, complaining and moaning that video games these days are utter shit and things were so much better back in the good old days. Back when we had games like Castlevania 2 or Die Hard, and we all thought as 8-year-old children that Bart vs the Space Mutants was a good game. I think you could argue maybe that we don't have it better than ever before, but I would say it's impossible to argue that we have it worse. Let's not forget that the video game industry started not because people really cared about video games as a medium, but they cared about money, which yes, isn't very different from these days, but look at Nintendo, who saved the video game industry around 20 years ago. They used to make playing cards and toys and things. They only got into video games because it was a lucrative way to make some cash. This is exactly how the industry started. It was focused entirely on exploiting children to make money off them. And that's what the audience was back then. You and I, we are the generation that grew up with games and funded the industry that we have today. And we were, between the ages of 5 and 10 back then. We swallowed any old garbage, and most of the games we look back on as retro classics were actually really fucking shit. And you say that, oh, well, everything's so commercialised now, there are so many licensed games. A lot of people ask me on Formspring or Twitter or what have you, what do you make of all the sequels we have now, all the shitty licensed games we have now? And I think, what do you mean now? It's disingenuous to add the now because it implies this is a recent thing. Shitty commercialised licensed games are nothing new. Need I bring up Jurassic Park on the Genesis? I don't want to bring up Jurassic Park on the fucking Genesis, but I'm going to have to prove a point. Or Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves on the NES. Robin Hood! All these games that existed back then just to make a quick buck off kids, it's no different than it is nowadays. The majority of games, I mean, you can think of some really good classics, Super Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, these really good games that have stood the test of time thanks to their simplicity and the ability to just pick up and play them. But for every good gen you can think of, I can take a little trip to Google and find you 10 that were utterly shite. I'm talking about things like that fucking Uncle Fester game, Legend of Zelda 2, all of the fucking shitty mascot games that tried to be the next Sonic the Hedgehog, the one about the possum, Bubsy, all of this shit that existed just to trick kids into buying it and loving it. And that's the main problem. We look back on these games through the eyes of 8-year-old children, the children we used to be, back when we had the ability to discern nothing. Kids these days watch things like Diego or fucking iCarly and they think it's brilliant because they're kids and they're stupid and they don't know any better. And we didn't know any better either. I think of the cartoons I used to watch, Masters of the Universe, for example. Oh, what an epic, brilliant, climactic, amazing, titanic show that was. Except you watch it now, and you realise all the animations are repeated, the story is utterly banal and nonsensical, and the performances are just... ugh. You know, we thought everything was great when we were 4 foot tall. And now that we're older and look back on these things, we can see they were shit. But a lot of retro gamers, I think, they don't want to take their rose-tinted glasses off and see these games for what they really are. Even some of your classics, like the original Legend of Zelda, I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't that good. There was no direction, zero pacing whatsoever. The combat was a crapshoot at best, and of course it looked like shite. These games that we look back on, and yes, they were influential. Yes, as children we loved them, and no one can take away the good memories we have of them. But you've got to admit, compared to the games these days, they're fucking jank. You know, this is just something we have to accept. Games are no more commercialised now than they are back then. Back when it was socially acceptable to make a Biker Mice from Mars game that was just a fucking Snickers commercial. Yes, I get it, you're a retro gamer, you grew up with these things, you have fond memories, but divorce your heart from your logic sensors and accept that these games were really fucking shit. And if you want to just wave your hand on the past 10 years of technological advances and dismiss really amazing experiences that have come out since then, your Bioshocks, your Final Fantasies, just these great games that not only look and sound gorgeous, but have a much deeper theme than something like Zool or Mr. Nuts. If you want to just turn your nose up arrogantly at some of these amazing games, the only thing I have left to say to you is fuck off.